What is up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Not So Stupid Podcast. In today's episode, we are talking about New Year's resolutions. It is that time of year again where people are thinking about starting New Year's resolutions and are worried if they're going to be able to stick to it or not. There's a very alarming statistic where 50 to 60% of people that do set New Year's resolutions are setting resolutions that are health and fitness based. So stuff around diet, weight loss, getting a healthier routine, working out more often, things of that nature. Of the people that are setting those kind of goals, around 80% end up failing to follow through with it or stop following through with it by mid-February. 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks in, 8 out of 10 people are already done. They've given up, they're out of it for the new year, right? And I think, in more recent years, there's a better explanation for that. If you started a New Year's resolution at the start of 2020 and all the gyms shut down, it's that's out of your control. And even though it could still be possible to follow through with your goal, outside variables came into play. But this is a statistic that is decades in the making. This isn't exclusive to just last year. This is every single year, which begs the question: are New Year's resolutions even worth doing? Right? I think, if you follow a lot of fitness influencers, there's two parties that exist. One that says, New Year's resolutions are so dumb, you shouldn't be doing New Year's resolution, you could change today, wait until New Year's, blah, blah, blah. And as you can tell by my imitation of them, that's a terrible way to look at things. I think bashing people for waiting till New Year's to do a resolution or being against New Year's resolution is the most ridiculous thing that you can do as a fitness person, anyone in the fitness space, because these are people that want to change and they're willing to change. Sure, maybe they're waiting and they're giving themselves some time, but I've talked a lot about temporal landmarks in my emails as well as in my Instagram stories. And there's value to starting at these big landmarks, these big date marks. The first of a month, Mondays, first of a new year, your birthday, things like that. They have a big impact in creating momentum and turning the page for us. So instead of bashing people for wanting to do a New Year's resolution, you should be celebrating it. They're wanting to change, they're putting in the effort to change, and they're making it happen. Sure, they could do it any time, but they chose this time to do it. It falls under the umbrella of any time, so it's cool to do. And yeah, so now we're going to be talking about where they actually go wrong, where New Year's resolutions usually go wrong. Isn't in the fact that you have a New Year's resolution. It's not the fact that you are setting one in general. It's how you set one that's the issue. And there's a few key things that most people get wrong when they're setting a New Year's resolution. The first one is, well, let me backtrack a little bit. I'm going to say when we set New Year's resolutions, a lot of it comes down to expectation, self-talk, and looking at the bigger picture. So when we're setting a New Year's resolution, it's a big picture goal. You're setting this goal for the entire year. Huge thing to try to accomplish, right? And when we try to accomplish something, we'll get very caught up with the end goal, with the final outcome that we want to achieve. If you want to lose 40 pounds, let's say, right? You're thinking about what 40-pound lighter than you are right now version of yourself, that future version of yourself is thinking. And you're setting goals based on that person, as opposed to setting goals to your current self. So if right now, you need 40 pounds, you need to lose 40 pounds. You don't train very often. You don't watch what you eat. You don't count your calories. And you start off the year, I'm going to train 5 days a week. First thing in the morning, 1 hour every day, every work day. You are going to only eat vegetables and lean meats every single day. No refined sugars, no processed foods, no fast foods. Cutting everything out. You're going very extreme here. What was another thing I said? No, that's probably a good enough example. So you're going as hard as you can right now, right? You're like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it right. I'm gonna do everything I can. Very energy focused, willpower focused type of mentality, and you're just gonna push the metal to the wall, put as much effort as you can to make this happen. Now, what ends up happening in this scenario is after week 2, you're going to stop waking up early. You're going to hit snooze. You are going to feel burnt out. You are going to get asked to go out somewhere to eat with a friend for the first time. Maybe you avoided it for the first couple weeks, but this time you go out, right? And you have the foods that you haven't had for a little while. And that leads into a trying to think of a word, but that leads into you eating more foods like that, right? And now all of a sudden you've completely shattered the goal you had expected for yourself and lost all self-confidence, lost all self-efficacy and will to keep moving forward with this plan. This plan was a failure from the start because you went too extreme. You did something completely different than what is best for you right now, than what you're capable, than what you should be able to do for an extended period of time right now. Right? Maybe you could do it for a week, maybe you could do it for a month, but there's no way you can keep this up for that long. It's going to catch up to you because your willpower reserves are going to run out because you're forcing yourself again to do something so wildly different than you have been doing for so long. So don't set goals based on your future self. Don't set goals based on what other people tell you should do. Don't set goals based on what you used to do, right? If you were an athlete in high school, you used to train 5 days a week, whatever, and now you're a parent with 2 kids and a full-time job and other responsibilities, it's not realistic to ask yourself to work out 5 days a week right now. You're an entirely different person, and that's okay. You just got to meet yourself where you're at right now. You've got to set goals that your current self would be able to handle, not your previous self, not your high school athlete, peak physical form, impervious to all physical ailments self, right? That's the person that can fall off a moving vehicle and come off with a scrape. Right now, you struggle getting up off a chair without pulling your neck. You know, like it's not fair for you to compare yourself to that version of yourself. You can't compare yourself to a previous version of yourself. You can only compare yourself to yesterday and tomorrow and today. This immediate timeline is the best gauge of how you're improving or moving backwards. And being honest with yourself about that is the first key thing, and being aware about where you currently stand, what you can handle, what you could do. I mean, you're not going to be as strong as your, if we're using the same example of your previous self, you're not going to be strong as your previous physically fit self if you're new to starting this again and you haven't worked out in a while. You're not going to be that's a plain fact. You haven't practiced this in a while. That doesn't mean you can't be that strong again. It doesn't mean you can't get to that point again. But right now, that is not you. And you have to face that and you have to accept that and work around that. So if that's not you right now, what can you do right now? What can you do right now to get to that point that's going to help you get to that point, right? You're not conquering this in a day. You're trying to accomplish this over the span of a year. So let's think in smaller increments how we're going to make that happen. So when we set goals for ourselves, it's important to audit and create awareness around what you're currently doing first and foremost, and meet yourself right there. This is exactly how I work with all of my clients. We spend a week taking awareness around different aspects of our life, how we spend our time, how much food we're eating and what kind of foods. I don't prescribe anything the first week. I tell them to eat exactly how they normally eat for 1 full week, but this time we're logging food if you didn't log food before. We're seeing how many calories you eat, seeing what kind of food choices you make, seeing what kind of emotions you have around those food choices, right? Because that's a very telling thing. Are you an emotional eater at different times? Do you feel guilty for having certain foods? That kind of thing. That could be something to note as we go forward. So having awareness around how much you're eating and what kind of foods you're choosing. Activity-wise, seeing how much you're moving, seeing what, again, when we talk about time commitments, what your schedule allows for and what you have free time for, how you use your free time and the confidence you have around your free time. Awareness around all of these things, all of these measurable things, right? And once you have that kind of awareness, you're better equipped to do what's best for you right now. More often than not, when I'm working with somebody, they're not ready to diet right away. Right? And that's part of the 3-phase fat loss system at StupidFit. We'll go through a priming phase first and we focus on, okay, you're not ready to diet. You're not ready to cut out all these different foods, right? You get 10 meals a week from fast food. It's ridiculous for me to tell you to stop getting fast food altogether, but maybe we switch up the choices we get at these places. Maybe we take one meal out of those 10 fast food meals, and we make it a home cooked meal, right? Or have a protein shake instead, or something like that. But we're focusing on adding different things, right? We're focusing on making a subtle change that can snowball into a bigger change. And again, I mentioned adding. We're gonna focus on adding lean meats and proteins, adding color to your diet, right? Vegetables and fruits. If you take a food log of your past week, how many times have you eaten vegetables? How many times have you eaten fruit? How many times have you had grilled chicken, some sort of red meat, some sort of fish? How many times have you had just an actual thing of that, as opposed to a burger, chicken on a pizza, wings, that kind of thing? How many times have you had actual satiating, nutrient dense food that is going to help your body lose weight or want to lose weight, right? So focusing on those kind of things first, nutrition wise, instead of I'm going to cut out all the carbs in the world, I'm going to stop going to fast food, I'm going to stop eating ice cream, shifting that mentality. Because as humans, as I'm sure you've probably experienced, if you've tried dieting multiple times, if you remove something, your temptation to want that thing is so much higher, right? You have to struggle even more than if you had free access to that thing. So instead of trying to make things harder for yourself from the get-go, take the smart approach. Take an additive approach instead of a subtracting approach. Add in lean meats and vegetables, add in lean meats and fruits. Get in all these different nutrients that are naturally going to satiate you, that are naturally going to curb your cravings and manage your appetite. So you won't even go to those things like you normally would in the first place. So that's the first thing. Once you have that awareness, see what you're lacking and add that, right? When we come to nutrition. And training wise, this is another big one that people like to kind of turn into. More isn't always better. Something is better than nothing, but more isn't always better. You don't want to do more than you can handle or more than you can recover from. If you're training harder than you're recovering, you'll never catch up to getting to the goal that you want, because you can only be as good. What I like to say, I've said on the podcast multiple times, you train to earn the right to recover. If you're not having enough time to recover, and if training is giving you a lot of stress physically, and trying to fit it into your schedule and doing it so often is giving you a lot of stretch, then don't do it so much. There's nothing wrong with starting 2 days a week for 30, 45 minutes at a time. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people do that, and that's the best thing that could be the best thing for you right now if you're not used to training regularly. And once you're able to do that, once you can consistently do 2 times a week for, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks, you hit that a few times, you built a self-confidence within yourself that you're able to do this, you've shown yourself that you have self-efficacy to follow through on the promises you set for yourself, then you can you can move up into longer workouts if you want to do an hour workout instead, now that your body is ready and has some experience and can handle it more and isn't going to be super beat up from doing a workout. Or you could add another day. You could go 3 days a week now, right? Because now that you've done it so frequently, you have momentum and you've built a motivation to keep going and go further with it. But if you start trying to conquer everything all at once, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're not going to want to continue, because at some point your willpower is going to die out. You're going to feel terrible that you couldn't follow through with the promise that you made. Your confidence is going to be shattered, and it's going to be so hard to recover from that. So it's always better to start with less than to start with more for that reason. So now, that's general guidelines so far for how to set a New Year's resolution, right? You want to make sure it is tailored to you right now, your current self, not where you want to be, not what you think you should be doing, not what other people are doing, not what you used to do 5-10 years ago, where you are right now, and being honest with yourself, and knowing that this is something that you can follow, right? Not something you think you could do, something you know you can do. And from there, once you set your goal, you want to get more specific with it. And what do I mean by that? This is the next part where people usually fail, is they'll have a very general idea of what they want to do. Let's say it is train 4 days a week. They say, I'm just going to train 4 days a week, right? They don't know where they're going to train. They don't know when they're going to train, what days they're choosing, what time, before, after work, what have you. And because of that, it's easy to push things off and leave them off till later. So let's say Monday you go, you have a busy work day, it doesn't work out. Okay, I can't work out today. I'll just move it to Tuesday, right? And now there's only Tuesday to Sunday, there's 6 days left. So you can only do that 2 more times. Tuesday you go to work, Tuesday you go to work out, cool. Wednesday, same idea. Let's say your kid got sick, you know, they had to stay home, you couldn't go to work out. Okay, Wednesday, you missed that. Now you have Thursday through Sunday to get 3 days in, and it's just on and on, constantly being pushed backward and backward. Whereas if you set very specific days and times for that, you visualize when you're going to be doing it. You have an appointment with yourself to follow through with yourself, and now you're better to follow through with it because it's not up in the air anymore. It's not something that you're wondering when you could fit it in. You know when you're going to do it. Now you just have to show up for it, right? So being more specific with the when and the how for how you're going to approach things is a very, very big and helpful thing. Let me drink some water really quick. All right. Yeah, so you should have broad enough goals to where there is some flexibility to it, right? So 6 days a week is crazy because you can only miss 1 day in the gym. You miss 2 days, damn, you can't hit 6 days in a week. It's impossible, right? The math doesn't add up. But if you have 4 days in a week and you schedule those days, you know when you're going to be going. If something comes up, you have a backup plan. You know the other 2 days you're going, right? Let's say Monday you go, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday after work is when you plan to go. Monday you go, Tuesday doesn't work out, right? You have to pick up your mom from her dentist appointment, I don't know. But you can't go at that time. That's the main thing. Well, now you have a backup time. Wednesday, same time, that's when you're going, right? And you're still following through with Thursday and Friday. Those days didn't change. You're just moving Tuesday over to a time that's more convenient for you. So there's some flexibility there, but you still have the specifics outlined and a ideal schedule and a backup schedule if things don't work out. So the more that you can kind of plan ahead, the more successful you're going to be. So be general enough to give yourself some flexibility, but specific enough to where you know and have visualized when you're going to be where and how you're going to perform those things. And the last resolution tip I'm going to be saying is, so covering the first two again, it is going to be planning and setting goals for your current self, not for your future self or any other version of yourself. Being specific in when and how you're going to be forming your resolution. I just thought of another example. I'm going to share it. I'm going to share another example of that one. So for me, you know, right now, one of my resolutions is to read a novel in Spanish. I'm learning Spanish right now. And what I have planned is Tuesday and Friday, I have my virtual Spanish lessons with my Spanish teacher for an hour. The half hour after that, I'm going to sit and read or watch with subtitles a Spanish book or show or article or something to practice, right? I have that laid out. I'm doing my Spanish lessons are scheduled already. They're literally appointments because someone else is counting on me to be there. And I set it up so that right after, you know, I can guarantee myself that I'll be there and ready to go. My mind's already working on Spanish to read or watch something Spanish related, right? So setting yourself up for success by knowing when you're going to be doing things. And then the last one, going into it now and finishing up here, is the last problem is that most people are going to be outcome focused when it comes to their goal and not process focused, right? So I had just mentioned for myself, my goal is to read a Spanish novel. I'm not going to start trying to read that right now. I'm not going to force read it over the span of 52 weeks, right? The length of a year. I'm going to build up to it. My process is reading different small literatures, increasing the difficulty week to week, trying to understand and comprehend what's going on, and then eventually, by the end of the year, have the capabilities to do it in a greater magnitude, right? So I don't just rely on the outcome. I have a process-focused goal that I'm working on. 2 Spanish lessons a week, 2 solo lessons of reading something for me to comprehend, right? When it comes to weight loss, muscle building, getting fit, most people have the outcome goal down. I want to lose 40 pounds. I want to build 10 pounds of muscle. I want to be able to bench 200 pounds. I want to be able to run 30 miles, right? They know the outcome they're trying to achieve, but they don't have the process laid out that they need to follow. So it's kind of a lot of what we talked about already, but what it comes down to is how many days a week are you gonna be training? What kind of training are you going to be doing? When will you be recovering? When are you gonna have your meals? You know, those kind of things. You don't need to have all of those sorted out at once, right? Again, choose what you can handle right now with your current self. We talked about that one first because that's the most important thing. But knowing the different things that you'll have to consider on the way to your outcome is going to be key here. So maybe this first week, so obviously when you lose weight, you need to be able to know how many calories you're eating. You need to be able to manage your calorie intake. Maybe logging your food at the beginning of the year is too much for you. That's just too much on your plate, way too overwhelming to kind of think about and learn right now. It's too hard of a skill, so you push it aside. That's fine. So we worry about making the right food choices at first. Let's say you do that all of January. February, you start logging your big meals. Maybe you don't log your snacks, or maybe the other way around. Maybe you log only your snacks, and you start logging your big meals in March. Or you do it all together. You know, at that point you have enough momentum to take a bigger step. And food logging is not really that hard anyway, so I think that would be a better move. So you start food logging in February, and then maybe you start actually using a food scale in March, and you kind of build up that way. And now you have a very specific understanding of how much you're eating. You can very meticulously plan out what you're having on a day-to-day basis and guarantee the results you're going to reach because you built up to it, because you know the process you need to get there, and you have that down pat. So instead of thinking in things by outcomes, you know, scale weight, for instance, you can't control the weight on the scale, but you can control the things that influence the weight on the scale. So again, managing your food intake, managing how many steps you have in a day, how much you sleep, how many times you go to the gym, right? Let's say you have process focused goals around these 4 things that would take you to your ultimate resolution of losing 40 pounds. But you need to have the process resolution first to get there. And when you focus on the process over the outcome, you increase your chances of success by 70% at least. I read that very recently doing my resolution research right now. So I hope you found this helpful in guiding your resolution setting or any kind of general goal setting that you are going to be having. If you would like my help in your New Year's resolution, weight loss, muscle building, or health pursuits, feel free to apply in the link in the show notes, which is at www.stupid.fit/strategy call. And we'll set up a strategy call together and see if we're a good fit to get to working together and have 2022 be the year that you turn things around. But until next time, stay stupid.